Hello, my name is Renier and welcome to this wonderful channel. I run a small company called Renier Media because if I say Renier van Logrenberg photo and video, no one remembers that. So Renier Media it is. Recording this on the YOLO Live Ultra just now. Got it a little while ago. So, great fun. We're talking about manual or vintage lenses today. Filming this on the GH6 with the Leica 2.8 to 4, 12 to 60. Beautiful, beautiful little camera. To look down, we've got the GH5, a lovely little wide lens there. I think it's the 9mm, which is becoming my beautiful lens. Going to go through a number of manual lenses that I own, and I've done sort of a test, a real life test if you would, to look at how would I use a manual lens on a modern Micro Four Third camera, or you can do it on a Sony or a Canon or a Nikon or any one of those awful cameras. No, I love them all. With a cheap adapter, or maybe sometimes not a cheap adapter. So I've taken a number of lenses. I've seen what I can do with it. They're all in a row. They're roughly in order. If we look at them in the order that I tested them. So what I've done is I've put them to the test as I would normally go out. So there's nothing on a tripod here. I seldom take a tripod if I go for a day out. On my table there, I had a little light box. Simple ring light over the top, and you'll see very quickly a few things in there, not really a still life, wanting with some fairy lights and a sort of depth of field using a ruler just to see what kind of depth of field we got. I also shot wide open with all of them. I understand that these are not at their best, and probably 2 or even 3 stops closed will give you the best optical quality. But I was interested in that wonderful thing called bokeh, because very often if you use these manual lenses in the studio or in film, you're looking for that creamy, soft flow from sharp to faded in a photograph to out of focus, if you would. So we're looking at specular highlights. And then I took it outside into my garden. It was a late summer day in the United Kingdom, so quite spectacularly, there was some sun, but it was quite windy. And that specifically was a test because everything has to be shot on manual, except for the few Panasonic lenses that I deliberately chose to compare it with, not in a deliberate scientific sense, but in the wind, I was trying to get decent photographs. Real life obviously interfered in all kinds of ways, and sometimes I just didn't get all the pictures that I was looking for. I stuck them through Photoshop. I like a bit of high contrast, me, obviously. And I stuck them through a black and white filter, or a black and white action that I have in Photoshop. Just so that they can all be compared in the same way. So let's go. All right. First lens, and we have the Helios. What else is it going to be, right? The Helios 44M f2 58mm. Nice, clean version. So bear with me as I go over to this, and the mouse has gone to sleep. See what I have, the Helios 44-2. Okay, so if you have this Helios, and you can now see that obviously it's more dusty than I thought it would be, buy it. It's as simple as that. You know, don't even talk to me about it, don't talk to anyone about it. It's going to give you incredible images. It's nice and heavy, Russian made. I don't think any more lenses of any kind, of any sort, were made than these Russian lenses. So let's see what images I got from it. Let's go to the little studio one first. Again, there's no white balancing here. It is shot open white. open wide, and auto white. And if I look at this, you can see that my Leatherman, these are sort of metal balls, magnetic balls. The highlights are interesting. I find them, I don't know, quite interesting. The sort of in frontier specular highlights. Very, very little obviously is in focus. I try to focus there, sort of on the nose of the pliers. So I really rather liked that. And zooming in here, if I can do that again, oh, that'll be nice. Back to the screen, if I can zoom onto that. When you go out of focus, it's quite pleasing. I mean, the fall off is rather nice. It's pretty sharp there on the front. If I go there, okay, the layer is locked. Obviously, the layer is locked. What are you doing? Stop it. Okay. So what do I have in focus there? Maybe 1.5 centimeters, something like that. So I rather liked it. Quite pretty. In terms of the specular highlights in frontier, thought that was cute. Then I went outside and I tried to get pictures. A beautiful, beautiful rose. Look at the focus there. I've got sort of two things in focus there. If I go there, a few of the little leaves of the rose in focus there. But the fall off isn't completely bad, you know, if I look fitting on the screen. Just a sort of auto contrast here. I like this look in frontier. Slightly soft, obviously, around the edges. Remember, I'm shooting in Micro Four Thirds. I think it's a pretty picture. I would have liked to have focused just there, but the wind was blowing. That's my excuse. Then I shot to get the sort of highlights there, but I blew it out completely because I was shooting manual. Nice, soft little image there, but I don't like it particularly. And then I shot to try to get in focus the stamen here, and obviously I didn't, but I beautifully got in focus the sort of texture here of the leaf. And even if I go in quite close, that's not altogether bad. So if I had spent more time, that could be a rather nice image. Enjoyed very much shooting on this lens. Reminder, shooting on the GH6, everything in manual. If you do shoot with a manual lens, I have a GH7. But for filmmaking, the GH6 is basically the GH7 without the beautiful new autofocus. Love this lens. Enjoyed working with it. It's nice and heavy. It feels like a lens. Clickety though, do you listen to it? Microphone. Clickety, you can have it declicked. You get beautifully rehoused ones for thousands and thousands of pounds. I think for this I paid £8, except for the adapter. So really enjoyed that. Next lens is the same lens, really. Helios 44-2, but it is the Petzval version, which means, let me just screw off the mount here, the cap there. You take the lens and you use your little tools, something like this. Let me take the other part out. Lens tools, and you reverse the front element. Okay? So what you get is a sort of spectacular blooming bokeh, the sort of thing that people talk about all the time. I'm going to jump onto the computer if you'll bear with me for a second. You can pay for it. Don't, if you get a good version. Sometimes buy it on a camera, you know. Really, really interesting lens to play with. But if we go to this one, did I do that again? That was clever. So you can see it's exactly the same lens. I've just had a different fitting on the back here. I'll talk about the different fittings in a minute. And then let's look at a black and white version of the Petzval version. If you remember that previous shot, right? What we have here, see how these things are blooming. There's that sort of strange, almost like a balloon or a light bulb, glowy specular highlight that comes here. This is pleasing, right here in the middle. It is soft. It looks like, I don't know, something from the 70s. Was it Sarah Moon, the photographer? I thought that was quite interesting. That's quite cute in color. It looks pretty much like this. Do I like it? I will probably sell this on, because you're going to pay a lot more for the reverse front element, and it's not that hard to do. But I think if you are filming something special, sort of soft, really soft focus, a moody sort of thing, you will see it in some Netflix films where people have deliberately taken this lens and played with, but everything is basically going to be soft, and you're going to have these incredible highlights. So let me close that. If I look at that, nothing is truly sharp on my right hand side here of the screen. Went outside. Oh, that is romantic. Look at that. See, my focus is actually better than with the other lens, except of course what you can see here is just a sort of old-fashioned postcard picture. But look at the fall off there in contrast. I have only upped the contrast a little bit. I've done a sort of auto contrast here. But see how I go from light, a sort of glowy effect there, which of course you can use. And then I go into the dark, which is really just my back fence. And over here, some strange highlights, but you're starting to get that sort of swirly bokeh that they brag about. And then when I did this on the Gladioli, you start getting it even more so. Then I did what you obviously have to do with this. You shoot against the light, because as you can see, you get this lovely soft cushion of highlights, and that is just the sky. Again, horses for courses, I think in its place. It has wonderful use. In my particular work, I don't know if I will use it as much. Let's see what else oh, okay, there's another flower I took. That is actually as sharp as I could make it. There was a bit of wind, but that is the sharpest bit I can try get in there. There's nothing there that I like. Probably my bad, but we have to be honest. This is probably the best one for me. So I've done the contrast up a bit, and I don't know, that's rather cute. I love the sort of bubbly highlights here, and that is almost sharp. Right, so we're going to live with almost sharp. And that's what I'm going to say about the 42M. Now we come to probably one of my favorite lenses, which I got in a box. Can't even remember where the box was. This is the Jupiter f2.85 beast, absolute heavy metal beast. Makes me think of the Canon f1.2 85 or 50. Really beautiful, wide open. This is a keeper for me. I will use it in my day-to-day work. I will, well, you know, unless someone steals it, and I have friends like that, sadly. Loved working with this lens. Nice. In this version, you can't even hear. Creamy focus, beautiful creamy focus, and declicked. And is it declicked, this one? Let's have a look. Oh, I can't remember. Probably have to put in. Okay, sorry about that. Let's look at the pictures that I got. Right, so here we have it, the Jupiter 9 85mm. This is that very same one. A little bit of dust always. f2. It's a copy of the pre-World War II Carl Zeiss Sonar lens. The Russians at some point were just spectacular at taking these ideas of the Germans. Of course, they won the war, and just taking both the technicians and the metal and the glass and making fantastic, dreamlike bokeh, even at the time before it became fashionable again, portrait lenses. I think mine is a M42. It does flaring, if that's your thing. Many people use it. I shoot a bit of music, live music, and flaring is always quite welcome. So you can get it for about £100 to over £200. If you get it for under 60 and you are keen on this sort of thing, I would say just buy it. So here in color is that lovely lens, and I have the sort of circles of confusion here at the back, which I find quite pleasing, you know, the way it actually falls off back there. And again, in focus is what, from the 9.5 to the maybe 11, maybe 1.5. So this close distance, which is within what, 1.5 meters. Interesting bokeh there on the lights at the back there. Everything is pleasing here. There's nothing that screams out at me. Of course, this is not really color balanced. I just wanted to shoot it straight out of, as close as straight out of camera. My focus is a bit rubbish, so I'm focusing on this ball, I think probably sharpest, these two balls, and I'm just out of focus on there. That's a real world thing. Unless you're on a tripod, and I had focus peaking on the GH6, it's going to be a challenge. This is quite pretty, I think. I like, again, the out of focus bud, but as I zoom in there, I like the definition. It is just so gentle if I look at that. So for beauty shots, I reckon this will do pretty well. It gives me a lot here in front of, was always kind of focusing there in the center just to get something. And as you can see, the fall off there into the black is quite gradual, quite gentle. Really, really like the lens. Took a Gladiola. See, this is better. Look at that. That's almost in focus there, even if I have to say so myself. But I quite sharp, nice out of focus highlights. It's just beautiful. It is just. Then I had these two flowers. They were just blowing in the wind, basically. I have only done a slight auto contrast on here. As you can see, I'm focusing somewhere here, as always, just a bit short. But I'm prone to do that. But the idea is there that even with a bit of wind, you can play around. Let's have a little look. This was just blowing in the wind, this thing. So interesting softness here. Somewhere there I think is sharp. But even there, that's actually not a bad focus, but it's only on that one. So my focus is all over the place, as we can see. But I still like it. Is there another picture that I did? Okay, so I did something there. I have the Pixco. Where is that? All right, the M42. Let me get back to this shot. M42 Micro Four Thirds f/0.7271. Speak under correction. Focal reducer. So normally, let me take this one out. This sort of £5, maybe, you can get it even cheaper, is from your M42 to Micro Four Thirds. Fits your all M42 lenses, basically. Nice big flange there. So it doesn't touch your sensor of your camera. Does nothing in terms of f-stop for the lens or in terms of width. Of course, the f/0.75. See, lovely lens there inside. Wins light. Now see, that's just gorgeous. Who thought that at some point we'd be winning an f-stop, basically. The technical is obviously slightly different to that, but it also reduces your length of your lens by 0.71 or 0.72. So you have a shorter lens. Now, we all know that on the Micro Four Thirds, your lens is basically twice the length because of the size of the sensor at the back. But this makes it sort of 2/3 the length. I'll do the math a little bit later and we can look at that. But I added this on the back of the Jupiter, and let's have a little look at the images that I got from that. So when I added that on the back, I don't know, that's even nicer. Look at that. Again, there's no difference. I think I got the nose just about in focus. There's less, seems to be sort of a centimeter 1.2 in focus there. Remember, this is at an angle, so it's not meant to be full scientific. The idea is just that you get an idea of how this works. Then I went outside. Oh, I shot it, did it in black and white, nice high contrasty black and white. To see the bokeh at the back there, I kind of like this. Again, this is not a beautiful picture. It's supposed to be science, all right? Okay, went outside, shot this thing, this lovely bloom. I think this is a very workable image. This is possibly the nicest one so far. Like what the leaves do there, would be just grand on a portrait or on that sort of image. There's the, see, look at that. That is just pretty, isn't it? Look at those out of focus specular highlights. I just love it. Again, my focus is rubbish, or maybe it was the wind. I don't know, but that is quite crisp. See, there seems to be a little bit of red, maybe chromatic aberration on the, I don't know. I'll have to really go. No, it's not even red or purple or anything like that. So I rather like these images that I got. Went for the yellow flower, and is this the one that I look at that. That is almost crisp. So there's a line there that is almost in focus, or maybe. And I do like the fall off in the back. Again here, just sort of auto contrast, just to make sure I get the image. And then I try to photograph the wind blowing. Yeah, that's rubbish. But you get the idea that I'm trying to get a picture here. And that one again, only that little tiny bit is in focus, maybe down here. And I think I see what could be chromatic fringing, something going on there, some aberration. Okay, back to me. Hi, am I there? There I am. Hi again. So between the three so far, I like the regular 44-2, and I love the Petzval. To work with these things, you have to have more patience than I tend to have. I think they will work beautifully in a film environment. If you get a matching pair, you'll see I've got some Carl Zeiss things that I think could match, not the most expensive ones. I source my lenses kind of everywhere, but particularly boot sales. So in England we have the wonderful ability that you go out into a field on a Saturday or a Sunday morning, and you basically look into someone's attic, although don't buy attic lenses, please, they're probably moldy. Hold it up against the light, have a look for specks and inclusions and things growing, because that's just going to get you trouble. Can be cleaned, not impossible to clean, but it depends on how much hassle you have or how much you paid for the lens. Always negotiate. Sometimes these lenses are on a camera. I just got a lens with a 55 single coated lens, which I tried out on people. I like it, a bit flary, but sort of a time. It makes you think of, I don't know, the 70s or the 80s. Let's go back to the computer and see what I have. We have the Jupiter, and then oh yes. The Carl Zeiss Flexagon. Let me see if I can find it. The Carl Zeiss, where are we? Flexagon. No, that's the Tessa. Bear with me a second. I moved things. Carl Zeiss Flexagon. I know I will find it. There we are. The Carl Zeiss Flexagon. Let me go back to my face. So, Carl Zeiss Flexagon 2.4 35mm. Came in a T2 mount, so I stuck it on I happen to have a T2 Micro Four Thirds. I would suggest when you come to these adapters, stick with the mount. It's just easier, and as you invest in them, or if you change your camera body, you just have to change a single mount and you can use it on a different sensor. But I just happened to have, because I bought a box of mounts at some point, T2 Micro Four Thirds. So I stuck this Flectagon Carl Zeiss lens on top. Let's see what I got out of it. Let's go back there. So the Carl Zeiss Flectagon 2.4 35mm. It focuses very close. It really is gorgeous to focus. 0.2 meters, which you'll see in a second. I mean, I'm filming through it there, as you can see. And behind it, things are in focus, so it doesn't even need to be mounted on your camera. No, I'm joking. Okay, M43. This is quite an expensive lens in 2025. You might pay £100, or you might pay £40 with a camera. That might not work, and a number of these lenses, not the best lens I've ever worked with, but I have managed to shoot with it not at all, because the one thing that happened with this lens, and I was quite sad, is this adapter, T2 Micro Four Thirds, wouldn't fit. So I have a GH5 there, which is on eBay right now, if you see this in September 2025. And it felt, when I put it inside the body, as if it wasn't going to work. So if I could do that, no, I would never. I'll see if I can file it down, the mount, or I will see. I've not investigated it completely. My £100 lens is a paperweight right now. When I get it sorted, I'll get back to you. Sadly, that's what happens in my world. Okay, the next one is the 2850. Let's see where that is. The Carl Zeiss 2850. Now, this is a beautiful lens. Let me grab that. Look at that. Can you hear it? Clickety click. You can have it declicked, obviously. 50mm 2.8. I enjoyed this one. When I found it, it's got a real mark there on the side. I don't know if that's a fall or a bash or something. It makes absolutely no difference to the working of the lens. I really just enjoyed taking some pictures with it. M42 mount. I'll go onto there. Look at that. Isn't that crisp? The nose there. I'm really interested in there. On the nose, I'm hand holding, remember, so if there's a movement, it's probably me. In focus, from about there, 9.2 to, so quite only a little bit, look at that. 9.2 to 10.6, maybe 9.5 to 10.4, maybe 9mm. In focus, I love what happens in front here. Look at that. That is so soft. Looks like, I don't know, frog spawn or something. That's pretty crisp. You can work with that. And at the back here, look at that. The juxtaposition. Oh, there's a word. Between the quite sharp beads in the front and the outer focus ones, that is just delightful, isn't it? And it's got its own little specular highlights there. So I enjoyed working with the Carl Zeiss Jena. When I went outside, again, it's my focus, but I focused on this leaf, obviously. No excuses, although the light was coming kind of straight at my eyes, and being a glasses wearer, that's always fun. And I was trying to work from the back screen. But I think, in terms of the fall off here, to quite dark. The contrast there, if I look at the highlights on the edges, that is crisp. Look at that. Look at that. That is just dealing with it beautifully. So I enjoyed very much shooting with this lens. I did my same with this. And again, I'm just not getting that sharp. That's just me. But I'm getting just behind it, beautifully sharp. And then I have the outer focus bokeh. So I would use this, see, on maybe an f, maybe a 0.7 which gives me a 71 or 70 millimeter for portraiture in a studio environment all day long. And over here, this is quite sharp for this sort of lens handheld in the wind. And I like the fall off again, the sort of outer focus fall off. Great fun to work with. I threw it on the Pixco, the one with the lens in, and now I went outside. So there you are in terms of the 72 millimeter sense, and a lot is sharp. Am I getting chromatic aberration on the back there? Negligible, perhaps, something, is that a pixel wide, perhaps? I don't know. Some sort of aberration there, back there, and again my further leaves of the flower are in focus, but look at that. Look at the bubbles of bokeh back there. See, that could just work so beautifully in a romantic scene if you're shooting a close-up of the two kissing or whatever else they're doing. This I like. Look at that. Nice image. No more to say about that. Then I tried to shoot in the high wind again and almost got something that I'm happy with. Again, I'm more interested in the sort of fall off of the bokeh there. And as I was working, guess what appeared? A squirrel in my tree. It is the time when the squirrels get everything from my garden. It took me quite a while to find it through my GH6 viewfinder, because you can't see it here, but there's a lot of leaves in the way. And when I found it, I didn't get it in focus. But at least you'll be able to see that there was a squirrel in my tree. The squirrel reappears. Let's go to the next lens. Okay, so our next lens, number 6, is... Now this is quite deliberate me, okay? The Panasonic Nocticron. Because in terms of the sort of lengths of things that we're talking about here, this is the telephoto of choice in my little world. ASPH, Power OIS, get it from between, what, 500 to 800 pounds. In honor of the Noctilux Leica lenses, called it Nocticron, 1.2, 42.5, which works out at an 85 focal length and aperture. Superb image quality, sharp corner to corner, creamy bokeh. It's got a nano surface coating, Power OIS, silent and fast, 2 aspherical, 1 extra ED element, 1 ultra high refractive index element. Use price 500 to 800 pounds. I love it. Okay, I shot some rock and roll. We have a festival every 2 years in our little town. Over 200 acts. I took a few hundred pictures, I'm sure. One of the unofficial or official unofficial photographers. I love it. This is all I can say. If you can afford it, you will not be sad. There are versions that are slightly soft, so just check it before you buy it. F1.2 is beautiful with even low light, because of course being a small town with venues, sometimes the lights are really not great to work with, but you can push the ISO a bit and then shoot wide open. And I'll show some of the pictures at some point. Let's go back to the images I shot with this. And again, it's sort of user error. So here we are, as you would expect, pretty sharp. On there, nice bokeh. Can you see how different it is there to the Jenna? Again, what is that? Maybe 9 millimeters in focus, but that is crispy and sharp, isn't it? I rather like that. So coming to a modern lens, which is sharper. Also, I'm shooting on a GH6 where the software understands the length of the lens that I'm working with. So it is doing its best using artificial intelligence to help me take better photographs. Threw it in black and white, high contrast, just so I could see how sharp it was, and I'm not surprised. It is sharp, even in my hands. Went outside, and suddenly what I'm focusing on, that little pip there, is in focus. Purely because I can autofocus. If I fit it on screen, there's a nice fall off there. Quite pleasant image from the focusing distance. I love what the petals do there, the really soft gradation. Even though the light was quite high contrast there, and you can see the soft gradation into black there. It was just a pleasant lens. It always is pleasant. And am I in focus? See, even Carl Zeiss Jena DDR f1 3.5 135mm lens. This was quite lovely. Feels heavy. It's actually lighter than the Jupiter, and it has this dinky little, which can be so utterly annoying, lens hood, right? Cute sound. Clickable, can be declicked obviously. Enjoyed shooting with it. Again, the Sonar optical formula pops in. Let's grab that quickly. Very sharp in the center. Nice creamy bokeh, M42 mount. You're going to pay 20-25 prices, maybe 30 to 80 pounds in the UK for it on the second-hand market. But you can pay anything for its size now, and rehoused obviously they go for thousands. So there's my auto contrast. Not much different from the very expensive 300-800 pounds Leica that I just shot with, which quite surprised me looking at this image. So I went and I did a nice high contrast version, and it's sharp all the way there, and the autofocus in front here is rather interesting. So if you have a specific sort of in front autofocus feel, I rather like those highlights. Again, in focus maybe 9.6 to 11, so 1.4 centimeters maybe at a slight diagonal angle. Nice autofocus highlights there on the sort of fairy light type things. Went outside and look at my focus. It's all over the place, isn't it? So I'm focusing in front here. But I suppose the focus is not deliberately the choice. That's just how terrible a photographer I am. But I love what happens here. Look at those lines. That's almost, it is just so pleasant. It's just so lovely to look at that. I think with a bit of play around, I will take this lens out and I might just enjoy it very, very, very much. And guess who came back? So, there's my squirrel, right? So, similar to the 50mm, which I had before, I tried very hard to get this beautiful female squirrel in focus. And look what it gave me, this 135. If you want something to get a keeper for a lens, right? I mean, let's not be silly here. That's a better photographer than I am, actually, for wildlife handheld. Can see some chromatic aberration. There's a tiny sort of purpley line, maybe a pixel or so over there. You know what? If I look at how sharp the rest, look at the eyes, how sharp the rest of this is for handheld through the leaves, I am very, very happy with that image. I really, really am. So Put that against a Leica, that's what, 10 times the price? I don't know. It's just a lovely lens. It really is just. And I think I'm getting closer to focus there. But again, the rendering here is lovely. Fall off is there. The bokeh is not quite as dramatic as some of the other lenses, but so super pleasing. Really, really super pleasing. Went for the yellow flowers. I was rubbish at the first image. And I was rubbish at the second image. Probably too close. But this is quite pleasant. If I look at the hair there on the side of every single flower, that is quite crisp. Look at that. Pixel peeping. And the fall off is quite pleasant. So all in all, of all the manual lenses so far, that's probably the one I enjoyed most. So I stuck it on the 0.75, 0.71, 0.72 focal reducer, and I had a similar experience, except I think there's far less in focus. If I look at that, that's maybe 3 on that side and maybe 8, 7, maybe 7 millimeters. The Leatherman logo is quite sharp. There's some sharpness there, and somewhere there, I think my sharpness is sort of on that ridge. Again, handheld, remember, and not known for the sharpness of my photographs. Anyway, went outside, took this picture, very similar to the other one, if perhaps a little bit more contrasty. Still love this beautiful, beautiful image. And I think I might just about have got the stamen here. Look at that. Look at the line there. So either I'm getting better at manual focus on these things, or this lens. But see how pleasant that is, right? So I've got auto contrast on all of these to sort of get, but nothing else. No sharpening, nothing else. Just a lovely, lovely fall off there. Don't you enjoy that image? Well, I do. Sorry if you're forced. And look at that. I'm getting better, and I'm also finding something interesting here, which I can't quite tell, but looks again like, I mean, it's been a spidery summer, all summer. I think that was my phone. So let me come back to that. That was my phone. So let's just go back to this lens. Let's look at that. Auto contrast. That's probably my nicest one of this flowery bit. Quite sharp there. But as an image, there's white behind it, obviously out of focus. I'm shooting wide open. It's pleasant as an image. So all in all, probably so far of all the manual lenses, the 135, the Carl Zeiss, is probably the one I like most. Let's look at the next lens. Number 8. The Palar. Okay, let me find it. Where's that? Where's the Palar? Give me a second here. So Palar, where are you? Carl Zeiss, Jenna. Ooh. There we are. Next lens is the Palar 3.5 135 little lens, right? Now Palar is one of those no-name brand, I suppose. Light. Found it very, very light. I thought this is peculiar. This is interesting. If it's nice and sharp throughout, if I can use it, this could be something nice to just put into your gadget bag. So let's see what I got. Palar 135, 3.5. Pleasing images, as everyone online says, and I suppose I agree with it. M42 screw mount. If you have almost no budget, £15 in 2025 to £40, I reckon that's not a bad amount to pay for it, because, and this is where sadly it goes wrong. Okay, here's my closest focus. Okay, I am 1.2, 1.4 meters from what I'm trying to photograph here. You won't believe it, there's a Leatherman just there, right? That's not in focus, but you know what is in focus? Look at that. Nothing in focus there. The lights on the other side of my room, which are 3-4 meters away, they are almost sharp, right? So when I handhold it, yeah, that is quite terrible. When I went outside, you can see that my focus is somewhere there-ish. I don't know, somewhere there. Okay. And even with a light wind, nothing is in focus. That's quite terrible. But if you stand back far enough, that's quite a pleasant image. I mean, again, I obviously can't do still lifes for my life, but that's not a totally unpleasant image. You see more of that. If you look at the yellow buds, that's just rubbish, isn't it? Look at that, bleeding all over the place. That's just optically not a nice lens. It's got green fringing going on. If you want to play with these lenses, then the Palar, yeah, play. I think I'll stick it on eBay and see what I can get for it, actually, because no, not my perfect lens. And so I went to the Sekor, which I can hold up for you. That's the Palar. And I went for the Sekor, which is a similar lens. If I can hold that up, and I have a stuck I can't yeah, I can't get that to work. So my Sekor, which is over here somewhere, if I can get it to work, it's a 2.8, so it is the fastest. It's multi-coated, which is rather nice. Image quality, I can't tell you because I couldn't use it. So M42 and an Olympus mount, somewhere between 20 and 45 pounds. Sorry to let you down, but yeah, I'll see what I can do at some point in the future. So the Sekor let me down. Looks nice, nice and long, but that's all I have for it. If I go down to the next one, this is a surprising lens, right? So again, this is in the Lumix rather than the Leica. I know my son had the 100-400. I've had about 2 or 3 of the 100-400 version 1s. Love it when I'm out in Africa taking wildlife. Really, really pleasant. A little bit longer than this. This is as long as what, an 85 on a Canon, and about the same weight, I would say, roughly. Power OIS. This lens is surprisingly good. I will probably take this with me in December when I go to Africa to do some wildlife. Let's grab a look at that. Sharp from 100 to about 200, I agree with that. At 300 is a little bit soft. Nice focal length, equivalent to 200 to 400, f4 to 5.6. In low light, probably the 5.6 is a bit of a thing. Power OIS, and it has this wonderful contrast detection autofocus. Now again, I brag about the contrast detection, and we'll see if it actually works for me. Operation is silent, agree for it. Somewhere between 3 and 450 in 2025 in terms of pounds. That's really good value for money. So if I go into the images that I took with it, that is lovely. Look at that. That is as sharp as what I've taken with the Leica, really, my used Leatherman there. Nothing peculiar or particularly interesting about the autofocus, I didn't focus on that, obviously, I focused on the Leatherman. Interesting to watch. The in focus I couldn't quite see there. Let's see what I have in the next image in black and white, if I can see more. Seems to be a lot more in focus at 3.5. Is it 3.5, I think? 4.5. Then I went outside and look how sharp this thing is. There's a little animal just there. And I can see the hair on its chinny chin chin that just happened to be there. And that to me is as pleasant an image as I think I took. Again, it helps that the rose itself, which is a Roald Dahl, smells incredible. If you can get one, grab it. I know this is not a rose program, but even at pixel level, there is a beautiful sharpness on this. Again, remember, handheld. Happy, just really happy with the image. Went there, and am I? No, we are not yet in focus. That will be my challenge. But of course, that's what I was focusing on. Very pleasing fall off there, from the sharp to the soft to what I wanted to be in focus. Obviously not. I'm always too close, it seems. The two yellow flowers, look at that. See, if the autofocus is there, that's what you're going to get. Just about there. There's my line. I can see my line of focus. Just there and a little bit back. Nice and quite good definition between the two, although not as creamy as some of the other lenses, the manual lenses, or vintage lenses, which I would expect. Over here, that's not altogether bad. See how much is in focus. Though I do seem to feel, maybe that's just my imagination, a little bit of purple there just, and no one likes chromatic fringing. And then I came back and I shot it on macro, and it gives you a really beautiful macro single ball image. So I enjoyed that very much. That's the Panasonic 100 to 300. And then just for fun, I thought what I would do is I would bring out the old Clubman, which I'm sad is terribly dusty, but was in a different gadget bag. And what could I focus on? I could focus on a ring, and you can actually see the dust, which is quite interesting, which mirror lenses give you, the Kata diopter gives you. Does an interesting macro, if you look at it. That's the closest I could focus, and you can see the donuts there, which is so typical from mirror lenses, and I rather like that look on specific things, but it's limited now, I think. Stick it in black and white and you can see it more. Looks like little eyes at the back there. So, Clubman, light as nothing. What would I use it for? Goodness me. Does macro, it says at 1.7 meters, which I just showed you. Very light. What would I use it for in modern parlance? It's a bit slow. So 1.8 f8. Can I do my rock photography or studio photography with it? I suppose I can. Can I do wildlife? If there's anything out of focus like grass, it'll make these donut specular highlights, which can be incredibly, it's difficult to think of, maybe on travel, shooting the sea, I think, the nice bright highlights in the back, with surfers or kites or, you know, something at the sea. It has a role to play, but will I have it with me? I don't know. Will I have it with me? I don't know. Let's go to the next lens. Shoot that on there. I think we're almost there, actually. It is my Pentax. So, the Pentax 135 f3.5. So it's the M series. It's smaller and lighter than the others. excellent sharpness, it tells me, and it has SMC, or super multi-coating, which helps with flare, bokeh, or bokeh, generally smooth and pleasing. Super multi-coating, a built-in hood, Pentax K mount. You get it between 30 and 60 pounds. A very pleasant lens to hold in your hand. And I also happen to have a PK, or Pentax K M4.3 or micro 4/3 focal reducer, which I used on this lens to take the pictures that I will show you in a second. And what I get to see with this is rather nice, if a little bit softer than the other lenses that I just saw. Pleasing sort of out of focus. The light there is quite cute. So let's have a look at it in black and white. That's quite interesting. Sharp on the Leatherman itself, fitted on the screen, and then over there it just seems, maybe I was moving, I don't know, but quite high contrast in the black and white. This is without the focal reducer. You can see the rust on the leaves, better do something about that. You can see there's a little animal again on there. I think there's a lot of good detail in the image here. And I knew it. I'd get some, no, is it? I don't, that looks to be in focus, but obviously not the one I was looking for. So I'm obviously too close. But all in all, for the green and the sort of pinkish and yellow going on there, all I did was auto contrast. And if I look at the edges there, this is a lovely picture for me, not in composition or anything, but just to show me the fall off of this lens. So pleasant so far. There it is with the wind. There's my insect. It's moved to the other plant and it looks rubbish because I couldn't get it in focus. And again, 135, your closest focus is just too far off, wind blowing like crazy. There it is with the focal reducer, so I'm going closer in. This is with focal reducer, and that is nice and sharp for about 1.2 centimeters wide open, right? Interesting green chromatic aberration there from, this is just a ring light from above. And the outer focus bokeh balls, in this case magnetic bokeh balls, is pleasant. And in front here I rather like it as well. So it just depends on the look that you want. Black and white, pretty sharp. It's the same image, by the way, just with high contrast. And then I went outside and I like this, I really do. And I saw this little insect down there. Reminds me a bit of the Leica. So again, very pleasant, very nice image, the multi-coated. My focus is as rubbish as before. On the yellow flowers, not so much in this case. Quite sharp, and I like the fall off onto the second one. And then I tried again on this pinkish image. And it's quite pleasant. I think you can work with that image if that is what you want to do. I must really thank you for sitting through all of this, because it's been super fun. I enjoy talking about lenses, working with lenses. In real life, sometimes it's not easy to work with vintage lenses. Sometimes you need to spend more time. And as a young man, when I started photography, everything was manual, and you had to spend more time. And you would take so many photographs and you would come back and it's just out of focus. But there's a look to a vintage lens. There's a sense that they are handmade. that each one of them has, and I know the word is overused, character of itself. It's a joy to work with them. Modern lenses can feel clinical, and people do an awful lot to try to make them look softer with pro mist filters and wonderful things. And as you can see by some of these lenses, sort of handful of vaguely similar lenses that I played with, you get it out of camera with some of them. There are good ones, really good ones. The Jennar was fantastic. At the end here, working with the Pentax, that was fantastic. Jennar is probably my favorite of the lot that I worked with. The Russians are superb, great fun to work with. 100-300 from Panasonic, I enjoyed. And my favorite is still the 42.5 Leica. You do pay for it though. You pay for what you get. Thank you so much for sticking with me. My name is Renier van Loggerenberg.